And so at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Ken Matthews is a household name here in central Pennsylvania, where he has served as the weekday afternoon radio talk show host on WHP 580 for over 7 years. He is also familiar to those who are anywhere within the sound of iHeartRadio, which carries the Ken Matthews Show. And he is also well known to the 15.5 million listeners who hear him speaking from behind the golden EIB, Excellence in Broadcasting microphone, when he serves as a guest host for Rush Limbaugh. And Ken, please let Rush know that he is in our prayers for his recovery and his healing. Thank you. And if you know Ken Matthews, if you've listened to Ken Matthews, you know that he's passionate about many things. Am I right about that? And one of those things is the right to life of every baby from the moment of conception forward. And that is why it is sincerely a pleasure to welcome Ken Matthews to the pro-life mic of the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Matthews.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. This is not my special microphone, but I do want to thank Susan for testing the microphone earlier during your presentation. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. This is moving around. That's kind of scary, isn't it? I took a few notes, which I often do, and I definitely want to welcome some of our extended parking lot audience, the people at Perkins. It's the pro-life big top. The people in room, hold on a second. Hold on, I actually had the hotel map. 118 to 227, staying here at the Radisson. Again, welcome to the pro-life big top. And thank you so much for inviting me. I also want to thank Marty from the White House for covering about 4 pages of my speech regarding what President Trump has accomplished. Thank you, Marty, for that. And only having one pen and paper to try to fill. Appreciate that. But one thing that is so true, something Bonnie mentioned before I start, how people in the pro-life movement care about people they don't even know. And that is truly an American thing and a pro-life thing. And that is why it's such an honor to be here. So I want to start by thanking you for inviting me. Some people just said, "Who is he?" Thank you. Someone at my table said, "Oh, you really invited him? You were serious." I thought that was just a Zoom meeting. More importantly, thank you under this big tent for your support and generosity for the amazing Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. If you're among my 13 listeners, which is documented, you might have heard the very talented and articulate Legislative Director Maria Gallagher speaking about the great successes of the Federation. And that's just this year. It's been a great year because of you. And the impact that you have. There are so many pro-life Pennsylvanians across the state and our government and beyond, grassroots, passionate pro-lifers. You have changed the direction of a nation, and now we have a president that gets it. So thanks to all of you. And what a week it's been. It never a dull moment ever since the president started to tweet. It's an honor and a thrill to be your speaker this evening. This could be the most exciting time in American history. For so many reasons, we are blessed to be alive and impacting the direction of our culture, and our country. But there are still plenty of challenges. As you know, our culture has become confusing, at times unsettling, and as wobbly as my microphone stand. Our culture has become dangerous. Our culture is in crisis. In places where we need it most, the culture of life sometimes is non-existent. In places like schools, entertainment, family, and sadly, even some churches. How did we get here where life is so much valued in our group, in our culture, but of so little value in some other cultures to so many people? We've allowed the media, not us, but our culture, we've allowed the media and our schools to restructure our priorities before our very eyes. It kind of creeped up on us. So much that in many cases, values go missing. And like our culture, our communities become fractured. Here we are in the most politically correct, snowflake-sensitive, social justice conscious, pro-human rights environment in history. And a story like Kermit Gosnell is known to so few people, it doesn't even make the news. Newborn babies getting thrown in the trash during a high school dance barely make the news anymore. And many Americans are numb to the horrors of what people are capable of doing to their fellow man, let alone children. And at the same time, a peaceful protesting teenager wearing a red hat, not saying one word and just smiling at a con man beating a drum in his face, is turned into a monster by the news media. News media that stopped caring about our lives and our culture of life many years ago. The generation has a problem, and part of it is, I think, too much iPhone, iPad, iWatch, iPod, I, me. Selfie, selfie. Selfie, share selfie, Photoshop the selfie, like me, follow me, love me. Here's another selfie of my salad. That's what I don't understand. We're having a great time in Bermuda. Look, here's some fruit. The politicians, and thank God there are good ones here. The politicians, along with the political far left and our media, have spent time and effort working to remove God and family from every decision we make. And in too many cases, they've succeeded. Technology has made their job easier. High-speed everything has created millions of people too lazy to do real research, too lazy to make eye contact, or afraid to leave their homes. Thanks, Governor Walth. I was just thinking that. Did that come out? Ah, darn it! Now it's on the video. And all these people, they know how to Photoshop their vacation pictures like a pro. In 2020, people are obsessed with the false reality of beautiful virtual worlds and social media and games, and the safety we get from the distance of being online and online communication. Who needs eye contact or a handshake and God forbid, a hug? Besides, Governor Wolf doesn't allow that. So don't you try it. I actually hugged a couple people. Please don't tell. I met some wonderful people before the event. Along comes President Donald Trump, who makes American values great again. He makes common sense normal again. And by truly recognizing the value of tiny, innocent lives, he has re-energized the pro-life movement. One of the many reasons the far left hates Trump so much is that they have worked so hard, along with their publicity and educational divisions, the news media, and progressive schools, to demonize powerful American foundational values and principles and to normalize the absurd. And President Trump has called them out on it repeatedly. President Trump initiated the necessary course correction from America's lurch to the left that accelerated under 8 years of Obamunism. And we know it started decades before that. And if you're one of the now 9 people that listen to my show, you know I was on the Trump train before it left the station in 2025. And I support President Trump because he supports you, and he supports America the way I do. And at least 63 million others agree, and I believe support him more even today. President Trump is the most pro-life president in history. And like with so many important issues, President Trump is the real deal. He goes all in. He puts real pro-life people in the State Department. This is something we've never seen before. When we see that when pro-life values are part of Trump's administration's agenda, they end up at the UN meetings, they end up at G7 meetings. And as Marty so eloquently said from the White House, he reinstituted the Mexico City policy that has now been expanded. President Donald J. Trump was the first president to attend a pro-life march in Washington, D.C. And I have to say, that was so energizing for me to see the leader of the free world put his money where his mouth is about life. That was a very powerful moment for so many of us. That is how a real leader walks the talk. That's how a real leader energizes a movement. Now, this might be a good time to end the speech, actually, because Trump, real leader, no, I'm gonna go on. The first 25 years I was on the radio, I was in all music formats, and I hosted mostly morning shows. Not the most receptive audience to talk about what I call grown-up topics like religion, politics, guns, family, issues that terrify your lunatic leftist cousin that comes over on Thanksgiving, and the issues that surround them. So I refrained from doing so, although I was always a conservative, and ironically, I started listening to Rush Limbaugh I started about 30 years ago. I would get off the air from my top 40 radio shift that ended at 10 a.m., and I was excited because I can get my work done, my meetings, and have lunch, and I would listen to Rush Limbaugh. And wherever I was in the country at the time, I would listen. But the only time I could squeeze anything political in a music format is if I wrapped it in humor and made it quick. One of my first political jokes that I was reprimanded for, officially in writing, was during December 1993 when Bill Clinton was president. I said, "It's Christmas at the White House. Throw another log on the liar." Thank you. I thought that was a great thank you. I did it over I think it was a Michael Jackson song. Sounded awesome. And because Michael Jackson has long intros, I had another 27 seconds to play with, so I kicked it up a notch and said, it's colder than usual in the White House because Hillary's in the building. And that did not go over well with the thousands of Democrat women that voted for Bill Clinton that were listening to the radio station and still believed him and still wanted to sleep with him, and that's why I was reprimanded. Fast forward about 20 years, and I'm in the greatest format ever, invented, period, live talk radio. It's the only format where we can talk about anything that big boys and girls and grown-ups in a free country can talk about. And that's how I ended up here tonight, being outspoken about a lot of things that make America great. I remind people that no matter what some angry woman says on The View or what some man-child cries about on MSNBC, and you'll see that crying again in about a month. Most Americans have common sense. Most Americans respect others. They believe in God. They honor real heroes. Most Americans do not believe Caitlyn Jenner is a hero, just like most of us don't believe Colin Kaepernick is a hero either. And most importantly, most Americans love and respect human life. But as you know, if you're too passionate about life, or God, or the Constitution, the media thinks you're extreme. Most of us have a story about life or death, or both. The stories are powerful. Sometimes they're tragic. Oftentimes they're wonderful. And I've learned that most people have some kind of an experience where they learn more about life or death and how some of it works or doesn't. And that's what happened with my wife and my story. A little bit of everything along our journey to parenthood with God and faith and bad jokes and ups and downs. And my wife has an autoimmune disorder. It's called APS, which is antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. I'm only going to say it once because I didn't screw it up that time. There is no cure, but there are medicines that prevent complications. Some people who have APS can develop blood clots. APS also causes pregnancy-related problems like late miscarriages, premature birth, or lower blood platelet count. It's more common in women and people with autoimmune disorders. So I'll take you back to our late 30s. It's the late 90s, and I had gone almost 8 years without being fired, which in radio, that is a big deal. I was on track to setting a personal employment record. I was approaching 9 years. I had not bounced a check in 5. I think it was time to start a family. My entire family was excited about my personal employment record. I had already been, at that time, fired 5 times. So I thought this would be a good time to buy a house and start a family. So in 1998, we bought our first house, and of course, it took pregnancy and we took pregnancy and new parent classes because that's what people that value life do. They don't wing it. So we made sure we had all our ducks in a row, and we took, I learned about all these rashes on babies' bottoms, and it was terrifying. But the nice thing about it is, since I took the class, when I saw it, I didn't scream like my one neighbor did. We had never made a child before, and at the time, there was not a YouTube tutorial. So I couldn't say, oh, look that, do that. Oh, selfie. It's me watching the YouTube tutorial. We're going to make a baby. We're going to put it on Facebook because we love ourselves. But getting back to the actual birthing process, which is now available on YouTube, not the other stuff. That stuff is okay. We immersed ourselves in research, how to be the great parent, etc. But first we had to get pregnant. And before that, my wife had to inject a blood thinner into her stomach every day, a different needle and a different spot within 3 inches of her belly button, every day of the pregnancy, 2 months prior and through the entire duration. Now, at first it was terrifying, but then once her stomach started to look like a black and blue pincushion, we could laugh about it, because it was her stomach, it wasn't mine. She actually laughed about it. And I realized during this process, not only the courage and strength of my wife, but that women, God, I hate to say it because, you know, it ruins the whole conservative narrative, but women are stronger than men. Let me tell you. And I know because I did my 13 seconds worth of work to start a family. We were warned that it could be a high-risk pregnancy because at the time, we're 37 and 38 years old. And in biblical years, that's 109 and 117. And she had the blood condition that I told you about. And we were off to the races because of my work schedule. I was able to attend every ultrasound, every gyno visit, and every, come home, everything's aligning. The stars are aligning. So I soon became an expert at reading ultrasounds, and I could easily distinguish arms from legs, and I had plenty of recordings of baby heartbeats because we had to go a lot. My wife was high risk. There were many ultrasounds. Bam! My wife gets pregnant. That's when you applaud. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to. No, don't worry. The story's just beginning. Save it. We told a few family members because we were cautious, because people said, be cautious. You know, don't go on YouTube yet with the selfies in front of the stroller. We got our stroller. We're Babies R Us. Sadly, she miscarried at 3 weeks. It's very unsettling and discouraging, but we soon learned it's not uncommon, and we remained optimistic. We prayed, we got out the calendar, we began planning again. Bam! She got pregnant again. Yeah, I know, but this time it was a little more unsettling. She miscarried at 8 weeks. Painful. We took more tests. We remained cautiously optimistic. I know that's a political term. I almost hate to use it, but we did. We took a break. Months go by, and before you know it, it's Y2K. We're 2 years older. We have a basement full of survival food, 20,000 rounds of ammo, our own water supply. I'm just saying. I don't mean to frighten any soy boys watching. The nursery's 90% done. Bam! My wife gets pregnant again the third time. It must be the charm. We go 2 weeks and then months of healthy, positive checkups and visits. We have a portfolio of ultrasounds of our little girl named Haley. Around the beginning of the 25th week, in an office checkup, the heart monitor sounds different. We know because we've heard heart monitors for years now. We've heard a lot of heartbeats. The nurse appears different. She says, hold on a second, I'll be right back. She returns with the doctor, who tells us to go straight home and get what we need to stay at the hospital, and then get to the hospital and they'll be ready in the unit. And then he goes on to tell us that our baby had died, but my wife still has to deliver her because she's so big. So began the surreal experience of holding a tiny newborn girl in a little blanket and beanie, and then agreeing to release her for an autopsy because we wanted to make sure, the doctor suggested this, that there wasn't something going on with this process, and we had come so far. So we found out, we learned that she did die in vitro, obviously, and we learned that she was perfect and perfectly healthy and had choked herself on the umbilical cord. The team at the hospital was wonderful. It played a crucial role in how we moved forward from this experience. So pregnancy number 3 was not a miscarriage. It's now classified as a fetal demise, born deceased. We were on the quiet side of the maternity unit. It is a somber and compassionate place where people are respectful of life, of pain, of loss, and they purposely, and I think this is brilliant, and it's what made the staff and the experience not only memorable, but actually beautiful at times. You're purposely kept away from the hallways on the other side that are full of balloons and cheers and joy and excitement of parents experiencing living newborns and life for the first time. This was intentional, right down to the purple flowers in our room, the understanding demeanor of the staff, and our entire team was as devastated as we were. They had been with us since before the first pregnancy. They were rooting for us. So we were not alone that day, and we would learn that millions of women and couples go through this, and millions of people like yourself support us in prayer and other efforts across the country. So after they took our baby away, we just sat in the room and tried to process everything. After the autopsy, we allowed her to be cremated, and her ashes are in the Allentown Rose Garden with many other babies that were of fetal demise. Now, this was the practice 20 years ago. I'm not sure. My wife cautioned me on this. She said, don't say they're doing that now because they might not be. My wife also cautioned me, and I'm going to bring this up. This is the first time I've ever spoken about this in public. And 20 years ago, I had not really completed the full grieving process, if you will. And I was at another event. I've been speaking for about 25 years. I was at a homeless event. A woman got up and told this incredible story. I was emceeing the event. Incredible story about finding her brother. She was with a homeless outreach project, and she found her brother under a bridge that she was helping homeless people. She noticed the tattoo, and she hadn't seen her brother in like 17 years. And she said, "That tattoo looks familiar. Oh my God, it's my brother." Now that just triggered emotion in me, and I could not stop crying the entire event. I just would not get it together. And my wife thought that was the funniest thing. And she said, "Make sure you don't start crying at that pro-life thing, because now it's going to go viral. The last time it didn't go viral. It just disappeared." I said, "That's a good point." So I really worked hard on that. So that was 20 years ago. So we're in the room alone after we hold our daughter, hoping they bring us some decent food, like a decent-sized juice, which is impossible to get in a hospital, hospital food. But they did, and it was good. About half an hour later, a pastor comes to our room, and I could tell it was her first time in a situation like this. And she was like, she probably got the note, go counsel couple that just lost daughter, room 7, whatever. She was probably more frightened than I was. She looked very young, and now looking back 20 years ago, I still kind of feel bad about my comment to her 20 years ago. No, it wasn't too bad, but at the time it was so funny that my wife and I couldn't stop laughing. There was a lot of laughter through this whole process, and I find that laughter, it's there if you have a relationship with God. I think that's why he gives it to us, so we don't bury ourselves in pain and tragedy. And people in the military, people in law enforcement, people in rescue, you know what I mean. There's a reason you have that outlet, because you're doing good things, and God gives you that as a tool. So my wife and I are sitting up on the bed wondering why the juice glasses are so damn small in hospitals, like soda cups on an airline. Anyway, she says, this is what the pastor says: "So how are you feeling?" And I said, I should have never said this, please forgive me, "Like shit, how about you?" So the pastor burst into tears and leaves the room, and my wife and I can't stop laughing. My wife and I have created a character. We call her Pastor Girl. It comes up frequently over the last 20 years in our marriage. My wife and I go back and forth from laughter to tears, like a liberal on election night. I knew that one would work. My wife's doctor shows up next. Cool guy, wonderful man. He's even tearing up. My wife and I are both frustrated now. We share our frustration. We're angry. We're frustrated. I mean, so close. And this little child was so beautiful. And borderline anger. How long is this going to go on, I say? What's the use? We're doing everything right. Why are we even doing this? Then the doctor says, "Don't you dare quit now. You will not give up. You're so close. You're going to be great parents. Look how far you've already come. You have an entire team of people that are with you." It was like Lifetime television for women. Have you ever seen one of those movies? That's what it was. Fast forward to 2001. Bam! My wife's pregnant again. I know, thank you. I was able to deliver consistently. This time it's a boy, a biological boy, and I just want to say that he still identifies that way. We knew early on it was a boy because I saw the ultrasound pictures and I knew that wasn't a leg. So he decides to come out 6 weeks early, 1 month after the 9/11 attacks. He's healthy, but he's teeny. So for us, the 4th pregnancy was a charm. Healthy son, we're thrilled, and of course we're getting older, biblically much older. Fast forward to 2003, we start that conversation. I think he really needs someone to play with. You think? Go play with him then. It's a whole bunch of kids on the street. He's crawling all over, just open the door. No, he really should have someone he can love, and look after, or at least fight with. Bam! My wife's pregnant again. We're excited, but as it's pregnancy number 5, we're we kind of get it now. That, you got to take it one step at a time, and everybody in the maternity ward knows us, and so we know things don't always go as planned, and it didn't. My wife miscarried at 12 weeks. But now our new approach is to keep trying. We've prayed on it repeatedly, full steam ahead. We said we're going to keep trying, see what happens, because by this point, we're crazy, and we've accepted our kids will still be in our house when we're in our 60s. Fast forward to 2004, bam! My wife's pregnant again. Our second son arrived 8 weeks early, came out feet first, and was urinating with such force that it was like a fire hose, and it hit the mask of the nurse and the doctor, and they both said, "Give me your mask, give me your mask." And I thought that'd be funny because a lot of you were wearing masks tonight. Imagine if someone peed on it, you'd be like, "Get it off me." And I was so proud. I was thinking, look at that little guy. That's like a 2.5-foot stream. At this point, my wife and I are both over 40 in biblical years. That's 132. We were grateful, and God's plan was pretty impressive. Both our sons are now 6 feet tall. One is 16, the other's 19. They both have been working for more than 2 years. The youngest will graduate high school in 2022. And several times during this 5-year pregnancy journey and adventure, we were asked about amniocentesis. And we always said no, not just because it was too risky, but as I said to the nurse that asked me, and she was very respectful about it, I said, we're not going to change anything based on that. We can't do that. This is life. It's a gift. It is what it is. We're not, so why risk? Because of my wife's blood condition, there was a heavy risk of infection of the baby, and again, we had chosen to follow God's direction from the start. And that's what makes us crazy. The people in this room understand that better than most. The power and the confidence when you feel like things are falling apart, but He's there. It's hard to describe to someone that doesn't have that relationship. But you also know there's others that need convincing, and that God is the master designer. People in this room know that life is the most valuable thing on the planet, despite what some elite intellectuals may claim or try to change. Now more than ever in the 21st century, we need to keep up the pro-life fight. We must keep God in science. Why would you exclude the creator of all and life from the study of all and the study of life? He's the creator. He gets it. On more than one occasion, I have watched medical professionals use amazing technology to save lives, including my youngest son, and that's for another time. They are doing God's work. You are doing God's work, along with many others across our country that still respect life for the miracle that it is. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me tonight. Thank you for all of your support for life, and God bless you all.